What could be better than Valentine's Day with my honey? What could be better? Look at this nice Valentine card. Thank you for feeding me such good food and helping me survive a long cold winter in Rutherford. It took me a long time to find this perfect card. Well, let's see what your hubby got for you. There he is.
There's your squirrel.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Love, a little nutty, but so cute.
A little nutty.
Very, very.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you, sweetie. Look what you've got.
What do I? It's red. It must be a Ducati. Look at what I get. Oh my God, I'm going to explode today. Yeah, this'll definitely. Oh, they're open now. I have to eat them. This will definitely ensure that we have a productive day down in the shop. Nice card, but the cookies look even better. I'll have a little snack here. Snack. I wonder if these birds know it's Valentine's Day. Hey guys, we got work to do today. Let's sit the whole day sitting out here eating seeds. It's Valentine's Day. 2008 Valentine's Day. Well, as you can imagine, Karen, the birds, and I have had a great Valentine's Day. The next step on this is going to be, I got to do the back block and finish off this hatch. And that'll pretty much cover us for the woodwork. Now, I spoke to Dave today, and he said I should today, at some point in time, priority mail usually gets here at 10 in the morning. I should have the canopies, and in which case, of course, I've got to start planning how I want to do that. And I have a pretty elaborate plan for what I want to do. I'll go over that in a minute, but I need to go up and look at the priority mail and see if I'm really hoping we have canopies, because this back piece will probably only take me 1 or 2 more sessions, and then we'll be ready. And I've got to plan this on my list. I'm trying to work off the list, and I know Joe is too. Joe was just on vacation, and he's back, and we're both ready to do cockpits. Now, how cool is this? I open up the priority mailbox, and Dave was right on the money. Look at this stack of canopies. And these are about as pro as I've ever seen. These are really nice. Now, one of the questions Joe had is he wanted an extra 1 or 2, and of course we have plenty now, to make himself up a pattern and recess this into the shell. Now, one of the things that's, and I'm going to go over this with a little storyboard, because I had a great idea, and I wanted to really think about this, but I don't. Now that I see how nice these are, there's almost no decision to make. And as usual, Dave Midgley has stepped up to the plate. These really look nice. These are professionally made too. I mean, there is not a glitch anywhere in those, any of the curves, the angles. That, I think that's just going to work out super. But here's what I want to do, and this let me do a little storyboard. It'll be easier. When I do this, I wanted to make an updated version of our cockpit detail video, and at the same time, I've already got the bones written, and John Pothier is already editing it, of for Control Line World, how to do cockpit detail article. Well, this will allow me to go step by step by step and show each step for the magazine article. Now, I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think anybody's done an article like that in a long time, or maybe never, that would be appropriate for this type of modeling. So I'm hoping I can get three things done. Of course, build a model and work in conjunction with Joe, actually 4 things, and get the nice Control Line World article and get an updated where all the information is on 1 video or 2 videos. And because these videos are extra long, I can put on extra features randomly or whenever it's appropriate, just to make them more interesting to watch. And we have some real interesting stuff coming up, maybe even on this video. I don't know when we're going to get a chance to splice it on. And everybody knows Spitfire has been out of business, but some of those old videos, they are priceless inspiration for guys that like the Reno Air Races. And what I thought I might be able to do, and I might be able to do it on a future video, or I might be able to do it on, well, maybe on the next one or whatever, but it's a project I'm thinking about. And I wanted to take, well, again, what we're doing, we're multitasking at a very high level here. The first step on this is to build a model. Now, while I'm building a model, of course, is to videotape it and shoot photos. So this becomes part of the job, and actually building a model is part of the job. But there's another thing that I wanted to add to this, and I thought this would really be cool. When I make these videos, because I can make them extra length, and I'm going to think about how I want to do this in the next couple of days, I want to take off some of the footage from, obviously, from this model to build a Spitfire, the cockpit, and I wanted to take some footage maybe off the Typhoon, because that's a bubble canopy, and some of the old footage, and I don't know which footage we have that would be appropriate, and combine these all into one or two DVDs that have all a dedicated cockpit detailing on them. Now, here's the reason, and it just dawned on me today how I wanted to do this. And I thought, wow, well, why am I doing this the long way? Well, let me explain. Now, when I'm going to do a complex operation, I'm just going to make the cockpit detail as one example. Let's make this really, really quick and dirty. Okay, when I'm going to do a cockpit detailing thing, what happens is I like to, about a week before, and in this case it'll probably be only a couple of days, I like to go dig out all the old DVDs or videos that have, and let's say in this case, MA2 had a nice cockpit detail that was removable. Typhoon had a nice bubble canopy. Seafire had a nice canopy. And the I-beam Spitfire had a nice canopy, very nicely detailed. And actually the original Spitfire. Now what happens is, this is a nice nucleus, and what I get from this, but of course I have 10 or 12 or 15 videos and DVDs, and I never remember what was on each one. What I wanted to do is, and I'm going to think about how I want to do this, because this is something I don't normally do, and if it's something that appeals to you as a subscriber, maybe I'll try to do it in the future in other ways too, is like, for instance, with paint jobs or with flight trimming or with wheel pants or whatever, is take the best features of each one and add it to the current DVD that we're doing. So what I can do is right on that, or on that set, if it becomes longer than one DVD, and because these are 3.5 hours sometimes by the time I condense them down, what it'll allow me to do is homogenize this all down, get the best ideas, add it to the most current one, and I think what it would make is possibly one of the best DVDs. And when we do the Control Line World article, I'll make mention that we have an updated version for, and believe me, not all of our subscribers are stunt flyers. A few of them are dedicated scale flyers, and I think they would find this really interesting, really interesting. And I'm going to think about how I want to do this in the day of, because I have another couple of days of woodwork, maybe 1 or 2 days, and then I have this time that I want to, while I'm doing that woodwork, I can be watching these and pulling out what I think are some of the best features to add on to what probably will be the next DVD. But that cockpit detail on this model, I really wanted to make something special. I hope I'm going to be able to do that, of course. And because it's Valentine Day, and I have such a lovable family, and I just feel inspired that today to try to up the bar here a little bit. Well, we'll see how it all works out. Just the thoughts for the day. So this is the ploy I want to use, and this is something I usually do. I usually don't do it on camera. I'm going to do some of it on camera now. Is as I'm preparing to do the cockpits, and I'm going to dig out the videos on the Typhoon that have that, of course. And you know what happens every time I go back and look at some of these? It jogs my memory about something that I had forgotten. Now there's the cockpit right there. And I had forgotten, and this was a bubble canopy, and I remember having a couple of good ideas that I think came to fruition, and a couple of ideas that I wanted to update on, which you always do. That's normal development. But the biggest thing is, looking back, it always is worth looking at the old videos and I have a little notepad by my side here, and as I'm watching them, because it'll be 10 or 12 hours of video while I'm doing other things in the shop, especially working on that fuselage, and I can make little mental notes of what I think is going to be worth replicating or what isn't worth replicating. And that's certainly true about paintwork. Whenever I do paintwork, I forget, as an example, I forgot how I backmasked the roundels, or how did I do the ink going through the invasion stripes. It's always good having those. It's really an unbelievably good thing. And even though these videos, they're old and I just go through them all the time, I'm always playing them, there's always something I remember from these old videos. And I'm going to dig out those cockpit ones right now while I'm thinking about it. And while we're doing the other work today, we can just be looking at in the background, and I can have my little notepad going, and just so we can really up the bar even, well, as high as we possibly can. And for us, people that enjoy this type of stuff, and nice, the other day I had to talk with Gerald Champ, he seems to enjoy it too. This type of really, I guess, dedicated modeling is the right word. Any little ideas or techniques we can make available, and certainly Control Line World now is able to get our ideas out there into the real world. I think we're going to really have some special cockpit here in the very end. Okay, so the time I have in this session, I wanted to make a couple of decisions. Number one, the easiest decision to make so far today. We need to put a pin in the back of this. This is not going to be solid enough. But the first thing I want to do before I even put the pin in there, I want to take the hatch off, put the fuselage in place, and lay out the block that goes from here to the tail post. Now I think for sure we've got enough area to get our wrenches in here, so I think this hatch is going to be fine. But the only part of it is, now see, if I was to move this further up here, it interferes with other things. Getting a wrench in would be more of a job. And I really want the maintenance on this plane to be as reasonable as possible. I don't want to make something that's a maintenance nightmare. But again, the next step on this, I got to bolt the fuselage in place and then start laying out that back block. Now the challenge is going to be to get this joint exactly at the right angle, so we have a nice, it's going to hopefully going to look like an incline when it's done, because from there back there aren't going to be any hatches. Now I didn't want to hollow this part out yet because I don't know, once I get this blend in, I may take a little bit of that radius off. I may make it a 1/64 of an inch more of a curve on each side. So I thought for right now I'd leave this part unhollowed. Now one of the decisions I wanted to make, you see how I've gotten this radius in here, and I get rid of almost, what happens is I'm losing almost all the fuselage side in the transition. So what I'm going to have to do, and I'm going to pretty much do a mirror image of this, is just run a piece of cap strip type material, about a 1/16 of an inch, right on the inside of this, right down the whole perimeter. The purpose of that material is just so when I curve this over, and I'll have to obviously put some notches in these formers, what I want to do is I want to be able to curve this around. Now I could have made a slight change of the design and, let's say, cut a 1/4 inch off the fuse side, but then see what would have happened? It would have been no support here. So, and I would have lost some of my integrity up here. By losing that 1/4 of an inch, I thought the better of the things was going to be to just try to work into that radius, and that's been one of the things that I hope has added some strength, not added weight. And then of course, not only that, but then I need a 1/2 inch block, and you never get the blocks really as light as you do a shell or this type of stuff. So I'm hoping that the trade-off here of getting this radius in and getting this, now I can control that radius to get it right up by the wing. And because we had to move the wing very slightly for the center line, it turns out that that was a really good decision on, well, at least for this one. I don't know how Joe's has turned out. I just want to cut a little notch in every one of these formers so that my piece can stay down, and what it does, it just allows me to get more of a curve in that back area without trading away any strength. Now, before I go any further, I want this whole edge, I want this to be a relatively tight fit, of course, and I want to have a little bit of sawdust along this edge. It'll just help kick off the CA. So a machinist ruler with some 320 sandpaper, of course, does a nice job of that. All these little details, and every one of these, a gram here, a gram there, and it allows us to have a lot more of the semi-scale features, one of which is hopefully going to be a really nicely detailed cockpit. Some really exotic looking landing gear legs. Now what I have is I stripped off pretty much what a cap strip is. Woo! I want to sink this in, but I want it to be as close to the top as possible. Look how nice that fits in. Wow, I'm impressed. I am impressed. It really does fit nice. Every once in a while it's your lucky, well, Valentine's Day, it's my lucky day. And this is going to just allow me just enough to add some curvature to the fuselage that I really want to have. Now I'm going to be real careful here. In fact, let me get my, whenever I'm working with thin CA, I try to put gloves on because I just absolutely hate the feel of CA under my fingernails and around things, and it just makes me crazy. It contributes to my craziness. Anyway, I wanted to get, and this is an important thing too. I want to get this tacked in with thin CA. And then I want to run a sanding block along this edge to get a nice flat to rest my block on. This is going to allow me to get just a little more curve in the fuselage. You know, the trick here is to let a little bit of that sawdust sit down there. And I also then want to reconnect each one of the formers in place so we get maximum integrity here. I want to trade away any integrity I don't have to. Because it's really, one of the key things is just to get this as strong and as light, and when a fuselage is this large, you can't really send a lot of parts along for the ride. Yeah, that'll sand out real nice. I'll do the other edge off camera. And I'll eventually put a nice little glue fillet of thick CA around both sides to get the other side done off camera. Now I'm turning each one of these into a triangle, but not by the former. If you can picture, I've already glued them, each one to the former. So now I can get a little bit of material out of here, like a triangle shaped piece. Because that's all I'm going to need to make this joint solid. And I want to keep all the formers connected. And this allows me to do that. And it's a small thing, but there's 100 of these small things all over the plane. And if I can let them, it's like saving money. Even if I can save small amounts of money, in the end, I'll have a lot of money. Speaking of that, we just, a funny thing, we have a penny jar that we save change in, and like once or twice a year we cash it in. We went down to the bank, put it in a coin machine, and it was a significant amount of money. I couldn't believe that's how much change we go through in a year here. It's unbelievable. Now, by having all these triangulated, the next thing is going to be to get this surface nice and true. I want to get this perfectly flat. I've re-glued all the formers to those little parts that go back and forth. And we'll have to make some kind of a little pin in the back of that hatch eventually. Now as I look in there, this is going to be the last time I'm going to be able to get in there and re-glue or double glue or triple glue any joints that I see I want to get glue inside nice and conveniently. And I think I've got them all, pretty much have them all. But the most important ones are that where these join that little piece that makes the perimeter here. And I got to go find a block now, and I had a pattern block, but I don't think I have a real block yet. I've got to go do some looking around. Okay, so I found a better block than the one I had made the pattern out of, and the first step is to get a 30-degree edge up on the front so I can butt that up there, and I can get that 30-degree angle. Once I get that 30-degree angle, then I can trace under here. And it's convenient that we have everything, all of these take-apart things at 30 degrees. Very convenient, in fact. Be able to do that with the belt sander. What I can do is just work up to that edge. Now the trick is to see if we've got the angle right, because that angle I can't really cut out for the tail wheel yet. Yeah, that's close. That's certainly close enough. Now I need to get the total length and put a little notch in here for where the tail wheel sticks up. Now I know the total length. I can get that very easily, but then I want to get it right in the middle so that I have the grain going right down the middle of the part. Okay, now I have the total length of the block, and I need to, well, I guess I could do it this way to make it, just get it nice and even, and take an impression. And then I have to notch that out for the tail wheel. Now we take a little break here to see, now Stacy and Rob, of course, they couldn't keep their little cat Buddy that we had on video. Buddy had a dander issue that the kids were reacting to, and we did a little research. Actually, Stacy did a little research and found out that not all cats have the same dander issue, and she had to find a cat that she could coexist with, and this is the cat that, his name is Punky, by the way. This is their new cat.
Look how cute.
Punky.
How cute.
And they're picking him up on Tuesday. Look at this. We're picking him up on Tuesday. Punky. We can't wait to see him. The Valentine boy.
Yes.
Valentine boy. Very cute baby. Now I made a little change of plan. Once I cut this, I roughed this block out, I got the angle up here that way I wanted it. I decided to cut it short of the tail wheel and make a little reinforcement here. and just whoop, snap that down. And I'm going to put a little reinforcement around here so I can reinforce the wire itself. It'll just strengthen this back piece a little, I think. I hope. Now I can line this up, see that I have a good lineup, and pretty much just get ready to tack this in place. Now, the next step on this is going to be to just tack it in place. And I don't want to over glue it in place. I want it because we're going to pull this apart and hollow it, of course. And then I want to make a little reinforced piece for that tail wheel. If I just, it's free lunch because I got to make a former back there anyway. Okay, we're ready to flip this over and start carving it up. Now I'll have to fill in this piece, and I used rock hard pieces of balsa so it would support that tail wheel. Just keep in mind, this is one of the things. I never want to have one of those springy tail wheels where when you launch the plane it jumps up and breaks the prop. And when you make an 093 tail wheel, you really have to reinforce it. And I never would use a stooge wire that hooks off the tail wheel. Not on my deathbed would I do that. Now the next step, get a brand new blade here. Brandy new. And just get that rough carve to shape. Now the one thing that's gonna be a luxury here that I have is I'm going to be able to take the wing out of position so I can hold this in my hand. I just need to transpose out what that shape is in the front and do all the roughing while this is in my hand. So I need to get the front imprint first. Now this is the first imprint that I can get. I can take this imprint off, and of course I'll leave the ink line on. Leave the ink line on at all costs. And then the last little bit will be... See what would happen if I start carving this with the wing in position? There's no way I'm going to not beat up the wing. So I can get the roughing done. Now I need to bolt on the tail piece and do the same thing in the back. Get the imprint, and then I can work between those two shapes. Now with that piece on, I can do the same thing. I can get my imprint in as to where that block is going to end. And then I can work between those formers very conveniently. Just unbolt the wing, and I can do all that roughing. And boy, that is convenient. That is a lot easier than, and I just keep going back to that thing of having a one-piece plane. I'm so spoiled in the fact that some of these jobs I can do very conveniently, and this just happens to be one of them. Now this is going to allow me to do a little dry run. And this is important stuff because this hatch obviously is going to come off many times, and I want to see that I have a good angle for the wrench, that I'm not chewing up my block. I have the imprint to work off. And as time has gone by, I've realized how significant it is to, when you're building a take-apart plane, get all the parts that it's easy to maintain. It's not a nightmare to maintain it. Now one thing really worked out perfectly here, and I'm going to do this carve, and I may have to make a little filler piece for in there, but this bulkhead, I can just run a sanding block across that. That's fine. This we worked out, and I'm going to get a brand new blade and just start carving into that. Take out just what I call a rough carving. Then when I'm all done with the rough carving, I'll get in there with a sanding block, put the wing in place, and do the final little shaping. And this isn't off by much. And in the end here, I may have to make a little 64th plywood former for here. I'm not sure. to catch the pin. We got to see when we get the pin in there. Now, one of the things that, again, you're always trading Peter to pay Paul here, but in a take-apart plane, doing operations like this, where you can lay it on a padded table, you can rough out a block. Actually, you can do almost everything except the final maybe 64th of an inch. Having this in your hand, instead of having a wing in a way and a tail and having all those things in the road, and this is just one of the parts, one of the operations that there's a saving on. Probably some saving, I don't know how much. And for each person that would be different, but there's always, we stealing from Peter to pay Paul. And I want to get this really very hard block that I've got around the tail wheel here, knifed in at the same time. Boy, I never want to build a plane with a springy tail wheel. Oh man! And if you've seen, one of the things, if you've watched all these videos all summer, John DeTavio's plane has this like 16th tail wheel, and boy, if you're holding a plane and it is an 1/8 of an inch of prop clearance, difficult. It's just doing a simple launch is a big operation. But anyway, and the tricks of doing this: brand new blade, hold it at a 45-degree angle. Use your finger as a dead stop so it doesn't dive into the wood and take a big gouge out. You could probably use a razor plane from time to time. That wouldn't hurt. But I like to get, my objective is to get as much carved and as little sanded as possible. Just because of Karen's issues with asthma and stuff, we're trying to keep our shop and house, of course, as dust-free as possible. But it doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to make a big sacrifice for the cause. But I can get most of this just roughed in with a knife. And usually the way you can tell if your knife is really sharp, when things come off like this with a sliver, same thing with machine shop work, when you get these big spirals coming off, you're usually on the right path, the path to success. And one of the things that I can use the plane for here, now that I've got it almost roughed out, I can just get off all the high spots. Not going to be able to get real close to the tail wheel. It's going to allow me to go into that glue seam a little bit and just get that last little bit of material off. And everything I can do without using sandpaper here is going to be in my favor. Or in Karen's favor, or both of us' favor. And of course, with a plane like this, just replace the blade every time you get a critical operation that you're working on. The blades are cheap. And use regular, ordinary, double-edged razor blades. Anyway, what I'm impressed with the most so far, working on this fuselage, is the girth of it. You can't get your hands around it. It's nice and beefy. It's not a poodle. Now I see I can work up to that line a little bit more. I think I can do it this way. A little bit more. I can get a little more off here even. And now I'm pretty close up there, so I don't want to get... I'll take the line off with sandpaper. I don't want to get any cuter than that. I'm cute enough here. But again, by engineering in that little triangle stock, that little cap strip, allows us to get more strength out of the fuselage side. By a bunch too, and believe me, this is a super rigid fuselage. And because it's big, this is the whole issue, is to try to keep it light and rigid and not have it wind up weighing way more than a traditional thin fuselage. I'm getting to the point now where I may want to do the rest of this with sanding blocks. If it wasn't freezing and cold out there, I could do it outside and save breathing all that dust, but you know what? It's really difficult to do it by the sanding. I'm going to have to try to set that up over there, because there's going to be a lot of sanding. And I try to do as much just by feeling it. That's a good rough shaping for now. And what I'll do is, before I start the sanding operations with the sanding block, I want to get all these chips up. I just find it's a lot easier to work, and this is what's nice about these towels. I can take these towels, just pull them up off the table, take them outside, take them in a neighbor's yard, the neighbor I don't like. No, I'm just kidding. Put them in a garbage can. Now I can get most of the rough sanding, I can get right up to, in fact, the ink line here. But the final little bit, of course, I have to have everything bolted together. That gets a little more difficult, but it sure makes it easier that I can get some of this done in this fashion. This is a little more convenient when you don't have the wing and tail to deal with. And I just can't get over it, how girthy this fuselage is. No wonder it's so rigid. It is really considerably bigger, and I like the look of the B-25 or the A-26 or any of the planes that are a little bit larger. Well, not sweeper large. This plane actually has a bigger body than the sweeper, just not a bigger wing. But I'm really excited about seeing this in the next couple of days, getting this woodwork done. I've got my little list of priorities here. This is certainly the next one. But then getting that canopy started, getting a dedicated video for that, that's going to be always one of the fun spots, building a canopy. Trying to come up with some even more elaborate ideas than we have in the past. That's pretty much ready. It's roughed out and ready to put the wing in there and do the final sanding. Now with the tailpiece bolted in here, I want to get this exact fit, but obviously you don't want to scratch up the silver. The easiest way I know of to do this . Now again, this is still in a rough, when I say rough, it still doesn't have the, until this is glued in place, it's not going to have the last pencil line on there. But this will certainly allow me to get that last little bit off. And once I get the extra material pulled off of there, now it's going to let me go in there and rough this out. And this is one of the critical things that I always look for, is that this, I lay a flat edge right across it and make sure I don't have a funny angle there. And I want it, once I get the shape I want, then I'm just going to take the least little bit more off to make up for the fact that I need to paint finish. But so far I've got this, well, relatively close anyway. Now the last little bit, I can feel this. The last little bit is going to be the incline that's probably still on there. So I can take the back piece off now, and I know I've got that shape. I'm just going to just slightly harden it up with some thin CA first. Now the easy way to do this is I can just see the hint of an incline on there. Get a final few swipes of the paper just to make up for the thickness of the paint. Now when this is permanently on here, then I'll be real careful about getting this line very straight, in which case it's pretty good to begin with. Now I just try to confirm in my mind what I want this shape to look like, and I think we nailed it. I think this is one of the girth on that fuselage and the height of the turtle deck and all of these things combined. This is a very, very unique fuselage, and I think it's very, very scale and very close to what we originally planned in the original concept drawings. So it gives me a good feeling that we've gotten a lot done today. Now tonight I got a very little time, so I didn't want to do any work on a model. What I wanted to do is see how Gerald's cowl came out. See if we have a usable part, and if we don't, we'll just make up another one, of course. Now because he's putting this on a model that it isn't a Spitfire, I don't know if I should trim this all off. I trimmed some of it, but not all of it, just so he has a lot more choices. Now there's an area to fill in here, and I'll just fill that in for right now, but that looks like that'll be fine. Now I can't really do the final shaping on this because I don't know what that parting line is, and I don't know how much I should leave on here. Well, you'll see. Let's see how this works out. So what I hope is I've left enough on that Gerald can, well, first I guess he's got to see if he can use this. And I guess well, we'll see if he can use it first before I get too excited about it. Because again, this is an experimental thing. I don't want to spend 8-10 hours making this and then find out that he was going to cut that off anyway. But let's see. I'll just send this out to him and see if he can use it just the way it is. And if not, I can always make him up another one. Trying to get off all the burrs. know, a spot like this, you got two choices. Since this is going to get sanded down, it's not a big deal, and you're never going to paint anything shiny like this, that's for sure. So the choice that I would try, and I'll talk to Jer about it, is to fill this with air epoxy light once this is sanded to shape. But it looks like it's going to be an acceptable part. We'll see, and we'll see if. See, this is the nice thing about a mold. If he needs another part, or if you cut this up and the motor doesn't fit, or you want to put a 4-stroke or a 90 or something, you can just make another one of these in a matter of probably an hour and a half, maybe a little bit more, and certainly a lot quicker than carving up a block. Now, a little bit of time I got left here, and I thought I'd just get the rest of the roughing in, get the fuse put in, the wing put in, and then I can taper basically this area right here. Now, one thing at least I've established with the way this hatch fits in here is we're gonna at least have a very easy plane to do any maintenance we have to do on it. Any flap tweaking or taking apart, adjusting the push rod length, anything like that. Looks like that looks pretty well engineered so far anyway. But what I need to do is get this, it's this joint here. I need to put the hatch in, and that's going to require probably half hour, 45 minutes of just sanding to get that nice and smooth. If I could find the hatch, yep. And then I need the last thing, I probably won't have time to do this tonight, is get the pin in here, and then I can hollow everything out. And when I had this laying on the floor before, this looks like a really good replication of the thing we originally started from, which is always nice. Yeah, we got that down nice now. In fact, I'll make sure I got it centered as much as I can. Okay, so what you can see here, if you look real close, let me show this. I've got the line left on, and this has got an angle here, and what I want to do is with the big sanding block, get that curve, both sides, and get this to be a true surface. And that's why I didn't hollow that hatch out before. I wanted to make sure I have all of these pieces. And I know I have the tail pretty accurate. I know I have this accurate with the cowl. And so now I'm working about that mid 1/3 of it. And then when I'm all done, of course, and probably we'll work on that tomorrow, we'll get the hatch and the back piece all hollowed out as thin as practical. This is the one area that's really got to be, it's going to take some time to blend this in, I can see that. So I got to get the top view and both side views. Yeah, actually it's pretty good. I lied. But getting this curve in here is a little bit of, well, a little bit tricky. Now, once it's totally finalized, the block is hollowed and it's put on permanently, then I'll be able to put that pin in. Until then, I'm really not able to get that as accurate as I'd like to. Actually, it's coming out pretty good. But this big long block is the way to do this and not get some kind of funny curve in there. Something that I'm not going to be happy with in the final product. And if this takes even a little extra time, if it takes time tomorrow, I don't care. Before I can move on, this has to be a blend that if I put my hand here, I can't even feel a hatch. And I think that's about all we're going to get done for tonight. Well, sometime you win, sometime you lose, but we'll pick this up tomorrow. And that's going to come in. We're going to get them hollowed, permanently installed, the pin on. And I've already made myself which I always do at the end of each session, a little list of the sequence I want to do those things in. Now see, this is what makes the birds love me. See, they empty out the feeder. I haven't even had my coffee yet. They empty it out, and I fill it up. Watch this magic trick. Oh, they come here, they complain, they go see their congressman, and then I have to fill it up. Hey, the snow's almost all melted out there. Woo! May have a decent day here. See, Enzo, I'm taking care of your friends here. Look at that feeder, filled. Filled to the... Oh, look who's out there. Look who's out there this morning. Aha! Oh man, I'm telling you, we have had the black squirrel, the birds, and I got blocks to hollow. I got to get down and shop and hollow blocks. Okay, this morning what I thought I'd do, I'd get the back hatch hollowed out. I really don't have to hollow the front hatch out yet, the back block I'm talking about. I got it as roughed in as I possibly can get it, but I need to hollow it before I put it on permanently. Then what I have to do is bolt the hatch in place, because that's going to give me the exact alignment when I get this lined up. And then see if I need to do any dressing off of the edges around the cowl with 64th plywood when I'm done. But the next thing is to hollow this back block out. Now, the first thing I need to do is leave a little extra material up here so I can insert that pin that's going to ultimately wind up here, and take into account the fact I have an angle here. So I've traced around. In fact, I want to make this a little bit darker. And those little doublers that where this connects, I've used those to good advantage, because on one side especially we got it a little bit thinner than I think it would be. We were getting down to nitty-gritty there. Now I can work, and the objective is to do as little sanding and as much carving as possible. That's where the gouge blade comes in real handy on this, something like this anyway. And once this is hollowed out, then the next step is going to be to real carefully line it up and get it on permanently, and then I can finalize that hatch fit. I've got my little list made up, and what I like to do is, as I'm doing this, I like to just think ahead as to what the next couple of steps on this are going to be. And of course I'm already planning this, now that we have the canopies in house, planning this cockpit thing in my mind. But the objective is to make all of these parts as light as possible, so we can have little extra goodies like the cockpit detail, and like some extra detail on the landing gear and wheels, and maybe a little extra in some other area like the bigger spinners, the wider body. It all adds up, and we want to come out, I mean, in competitive weight. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think, oh, well, you know, you don't have to make that light, you know, just forget about it. Well, yeah, if you make a straight line plane, you can be pretty sloppy at times and still get away with it. But on a semi-scale plane, everything has got to be, at least in my opinion, and as I'm working this part, I'm feeling it with my hand. And then when I get this all hogged out, next step will be to get over to the sanding bench, or just get some sandpaper with that tool. Hollow it out as much as possible. Again, every time I can get a gram out of somewhere that's going along for the ride, I can add a gram that's going to add to the overall appearance or the impact of the model. Boy, if you only knew years ago when we could just buy that 4-pound wood by the carload. Whoa, boy. I really miss those days. Enzo the rooster misses them. Anyway, the snow is melting out there, so I guess I got something to be happy about anyway. we'll find out. This weekend coming up is the first open house for our real estate sale, and I needed to do a little maintenance over there before they show the house this weekend. But I was hoping I wouldn't have to do it in a snowstorm. And this, even though this wood, see, this wood isn't really carven because it's not really good quality wood. It's not, it's mediocre at best. And it's chunking off. It's not coming off in nice big swirls. But anyway, we'll get this roughed out and it'll be ready to sand it out. Now this is always, the rounded polywog is always the one that works well on this. What I like to do is hold it up to the light, look for any thin spots. In this case, it's not really that complex of a shape, so it's not difficult, but we certainly want to get any extra weight out of here we can. Usually I can just feel with my hands where there's going to be a spot that's going to need a little extra work. Now that hollowed out pretty nicely. And I'm not sure when you can see when you hold it up to a fluorescent light, that's pretty much the color you'd like to have on the whole part. A nice consistent, like a light brown color. Now the next step on this, of course, is going to be to get it installed. Karen's going through the email here, and we're working on a little bit of a scam with John Poth here. This, of course, is John and his 62 Vet. But this is really, well, Karen is, see, Karen, you give her an inch and she takes a mile. So she'll put the picture up on the screen that we're working on. We're working on a picture for our friends, and John, of course, is doing all the work. And this was our Super Bowl party, which you probably saw in the video. Now, John pulled the frame, and he's flipping it, you know, making us look fatter than we are and skinnier. And what we wanted him to do originally is make Karen and I look nice and skinny and take...
Make our friends look fat.
Make our friends look fat and turn the dog into a German Shepherd or something. But hey, we don't want to go there because we want to give them a copy of the picture. But anyway, Karen came up with this idea to take this picture and make us at the Super Bowl. So we're gonna email John, but we're gonna pull a little bit of a scam on it. We're gonna tell him we really need the picture or something to get out of jail free card, or I don't know. We got to come up with a scam. See, you look good in this picture. I don't. I look like, you know, yeah, I got 3 chins.
Look at you two men with your young wives.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with old men having young wives, as long as they can afford them.
Exactly.
Okay. That's the deal breaker right there, affording them. Chicky, it's not nice to tease John Poth here. Chicky is not approving. Chicky does not think that's funny. And Bruce's feathers are up here too. Chicky, they're teasing. Oh, look at his bits. Now see, here's my dreams. Everybody has dreams. That Karen someday will buy me the new Ducati. Then John Cafaro will say, you know, I'm getting too old for my Testarossa, and just give me his Testarossa. And then somebody with a lot of money will give me an Enzo. But that's the real dream right there, that there's only one flyable Typhoon left in the world. That would be something special. Now we got some really neat stuff from John Cafaro here. First off, picture of his son and obviously a shoestring. And some Ferrari museum stuff, which I haven't played yet, and some video of the trains. So I'm obviously looking forward to seeing that. Now I checked out. I checked with Chicky, actually. This is a nice little slideshow that came in from John Cafaro of his dad's.
pre-World War II train layout, and obviously most of us are multi-talented, like other aspects of modeling, including trains and including birds. So check this out. This is really pretty neat stuff. I really enjoyed that, and you know what? I'm going to share that with my friend Arnie, who really loves those pre-World War II trains. And you know, the only thing with Arnie, he already's got $1 million worth of O-gauge stuff. Anyway, John, we appreciate that so much, and we also have something here that I think you'll enjoy. Well, I haven't played it yet. We'll play it tomorrow, I think. He's got something from the Ferrari, I guess the Ferrari Museum or something. Anyway, we got to do email. We're pretty bogged down in work here because of the real estate deal. Let me go over and finish up the email. And what they would be complete without our Spitfire pictures from Rich Walbridge. Oh, I love those trains. Oh man. And I hope in the future, you know, that John Cafaro is going to be able to get some video of the trains running where you can hear the wheels clickety clacking and whatever. I really do like that. But you know what? Those big standard gauge trains, though, you need a giant room. And I think the room he's got is 10 by 20. It's much bigger than my room. Now here's one in American markings. Look at this, in camo, American markings. With the pointy rudder. You can see the ribs in the rudder. American markings. That'd be unique. I'm always amazed at this. Look how far down the flaps go on this. They are 90-degree flaps. That's unbelievable. I've never seen another plane that they go down 90. There's some unusual markings on this one too. Look at the rudder. That's not really atypical. It's not an English one, that's for sure, because look, the markings are different. But if you look at the history of the Spitfire, and I see in the background there's our silver and red guy, the history of the Spitfire, so many other air forces, even after World War II, had these. And it's hard not to like the ones with the 5-bladed props. I got to admit, I'm prejudiced. I love those 5-bladed props. One of the very few planes to ever use a 5-bladed prop. Here's some unique nose art up on this one. This has the look of Duxford here. Here's the traditional British rudder, red, white, and blue. Traditional markings. Now what's happened, and I apologize to anybody that I've gotten a day or two behind on doing email and different things because of this real estate, getting into open houseville here. I'm trying to catch up on all the emails, all the personal letters, all the things I have to return today and get it all out in the mail. Oh, I still like this silver and red one a lot. It's the reason somebody's always standing by with a fire extinguisher when they fire up a Griffin. I told you don't put so much fuel in it. Only one prime. There's Joe's favorite color. Actually, I've struggled with this whole paint job thing for the whole time of building this model, and this one is still in the playoffs. I don't know if he's the Patriots or the Giants, but he's still in the playoffs. That silver and red one is still in the playoffs too. And this is one that I actually did get to see. This is one of the ones that's based at Duxford, if I remember. Unless they have two of them, and I don't know where the other one is. That is a nice paint job. That would show up well in the air too, just thinking of things. The roundels. Certainly not out of, and it's, of course, the thing that makes it very difficult is the option of doing a fantasy Spitfire. Here's another one, silver and red. That is nice. It's a bubble canopy one, 4-bladed prop. With the older wing. And they always have the yellow leading edge with the tape over the guns. We've simulated that on all the Spitfires, all the details. And this is the beauty of a semi-scale plane. When you get excited about doing these details, and you know you have to make up for it by hollowing the blocks a little more, or being judicious about how much something else you put in the plane, or just being very careful with wood fits so you don't build up a lot of glue weight. And in the end, you have something really special. And I want to thank Rich Walbridge, John Pothier, everybody, John Cafaro, everybody that makes sharing this stuff so much fun. I really, in the course of doing my daily business, I really do look forward to browsing through these pictures. Now, the only thing I didn't have time to do today, and because this day basically is over, you get a chance to look at the material that John Cafaro sent. It's actually in a VHS tape. It's got some interesting stuff on it. We'll keep that for tomorrow. And we've linked up with Joe Adamusco, who's going to be coming down with, I hope, with his friend Ludwig in the next couple of days. He's ready to pick up the canopies and get started. Now, we got a little bit of time left at the end of the night here. I think the only thing I'm going to be able to do, I don't want to start anything too big. I can get the hatch hollowed out here before I retire for the day. Now with the hatch, I wasn't going to do this until later, but I have this little gap of time here. I need to leave a little extra material up in the front here because the pin will go there. But I can take a lot of this out with the ball router. Just makes it a little quicker to do it. And it's not like we're having a race, but it's hard to get up in that corner with a normal knife. Always feeling it to see where the high spot would be. I wanted to leave a little extra material here. I'll do the rest of this with that little polywog. But always squeezing and feeling where it might be a spot that you could take a little more weight out of. Okay, it's time to do this, to tack this on. Here's the criteria. This has to be perfectly flat, of course. I've got the hatch hollowed out. I needed to make a little spacer here just to get everything nice and level. I want to line up with, obviously, with the tape. Now, the way I've always done, the way I always do this, and I've got to be very careful at the last couple of joints not to drip any down into the take-apart features. But what this is going to allow me to do is just run all my little dots of CA, each one separate. Be very careful up at the front. Then what I'll do before I run a permanent glue seam, I'll take the hatch out, and the hatch is going to line me up right here. In fact, the tape is holding it right in place. When I take the wing out, then I can drop thin CA in here and just let it come right out the back of the fuselage. Now the trick to doing this
is not to get any CA up under the tape, of course. Get alignment, put a little pressure on it. One drop, because all we're doing is, in essence, just tacking this together. The dust from the paper towel kicks it off. Once I know that one is solid, now I can kind of squeeze this together, get a really good alignment. Same thing, just one drop. And boy, we are closing in on right now on what is probably the most exciting part of any build, the end of the woodwork. And I would have the woodwork done within the next few days, final sand it out and start putting coats of dope maybe, and I've thought about doing this two different ways. I thought about putting everything in silver if the cockpits didn't get here, the canopies, but since the canopies are here, maybe we'll wind up doing that canopy thing first. Again, I've got a lot of choices, but this is always the best way, even though it takes a little longer to do this. In the end, this always winds up being the best. Now, this is where it gets tricky. I don't want anything up by that hatch. I'm going to be very careful about just putting the smallest little dot of CA up there. Or we have a no take apart hatch here, which would be even more embarrassing. And then when everything's put together, and this has a permanent glue seam, and only then would I put everything back together, the hatch, the fuselage, and then final sand everything in. Now this to me is very interesting, but we've been neighbors with this woman, Dale, who you might have seen. She had some baby possums on her shoulder, and she's about our age. But what we ran into in trying to get interviewing contractors to give us a price on this porch, one of the problems is in this town, we would wind up being 2 feet too close to the street once we put the porch on. And the only way we get around that is if we can produce a picture of the house when it had the original porch. Now this woman Dale, and I never knew this, when we approached her, because she's lived here her whole life, she said, oh, she doesn't think she has a picture, but she'll do a sketch from memory. And so what Karen tried to do is go down to the building department and see if they would accept that instead of the really lengthy, expensive process of doing a variance. And we haven't got an answer yet. So in the next couple of days, you may hear some gnashing of teeth if they deny us. And then we have to go through this really lengthy variance thing. Okay, it's time to start taking the tape off and then continue the glue seam. Now here's a nice little tip. Before I run a permanent glue seam, just touch this with sandpaper. And what that does, it fills up all the little gaps with sawdust, if there are any gaps. And even in a really nice tight fit, there's always something that's a little... I wipe it and push the sawdust down in there. Now I could run the whole glue seam a couple inches at a time. And that little bit of sawdust that's in there will just act like a filler. And it doesn't really matter if you go over the old joint or not.
Now both of these are pretty, actually they're not too bad. Shouldn't complain. This one's got a little wedge that I had to put up in the front there. I'm just going to let that fill with sawdust. I'm not changing any shape. I'm just making some dust and letting it go down in there. And then I want to get the inside of the seam glued before I put this back together. Now the next thing I have to do is put the pin in the hatch. The only problem is we're running out of time, and as you can imagine, Karen has given me the time for supper call. And maybe we'll let the pin go till tomorrow. And then to do the pin, I have to put the whole thing back together again. And then when that's all done, and it'll be a very pleasant thing to put this all back together. We'll probably do that tomorrow and put a final sanding on everything. Closing in on having the woodworking done. Now today's job, get that bottom block pin in and get the final sanding in as we close in on having all the woodwork done. Pretty exciting time. Every morning when I get up and have my coffee, I'm just really looking forward to seeing this puppy in one piece again. Now it's funny, every one of these Spitfires is like an individual child. They each have their own personality, they each have their own history. And I really hope we're going to be adding some, I know we're going to be adding some fun to this project. When Joe has his ready, I have mine ready, and we'll be down at that field. And basically that's what keeps me going through a long winter and through this real estate, well, the hassle of this real estate project. But knowing spring is coming. And of course the highlight of our year being at Brodex. So let me get over there, finish up the coffee, and get cooking, baby. Now, whenever I get to this point, here's a nice important thing, or something that you can certainly use. I sanded this in, just again a rough sanding so that I can't feel the joint, but the final sanding is going to be once I get ready to put the last coat of dope on, and I'll do that with fine paper, of course 320 or 400. I want to make sure this part here is nice and solid because I need to put a pin in there. Now this is something you would think that that would be obvious, but it really isn't. The first time I did this, I carved, sanded, doped, made everything silver, and then put the pin in. Put the pin in, and it was just off this way, that way, up or down. Now, the trick is, I'm going to go cut a little piece of 3/32 music wire, because then I can put it inside a piece of fuel tank tubing. The trick to this pin is going to be, I want to put the pin in here, I want to radius bullnose the front of it off. And then when I put the wing in position, I want to just put a little imprint on there. Then I'm going to take and drill this out and put a little piece of aluminum or brass, I guess brass tubing if I have it, whatever I have that'll go around the pin. Now, when this connects in there, no matter how carefully you do it, this is going to be off a 1/64 of an inch one way or another. So I've allowed in the sanding and hollowing that when this is done, I could take that real big sanding block, and then the final thing is to get everything that I'm really satisfied with it. Now, it seems like a lot of the things that I've learned over the years are the sequence. Do X, Y, Z. As an example, I haven't taken this piece of sheeting out yet. This will come out when the plane is further on in the finish. We got to take it out under the cockpit, of course. But this acts as a jig.
Now, in this case, it saves me from having to put the handle in and out every time I take the wing out. Just makes it a little more rigid. So, and every step of what we've done here is predicated on, every step of this is the sequence of things, those lists that I use, and they work well for me, but obviously everybody has a different or a personal technique that they use. So, and again, as I sneak up, here's what really happens. As you sneak up on having the woodwork done, you get anxious and you want to get it rushed through. So maybe you tend not to hollow that last little bit of material out, or not put a finish on the inside of the block, or you do something. And then springtime comes and you're all done, you're finished with the model, and it's still not flying season, and you sit there and look at it and go, yeah, I wish I could get in there and hollow that out. Wish I could get in there and put another little glue seam there or something. So I'm trying not to fall for that trick. But sometimes you fall for it anyway. It doesn't even matter. So the next step on this is going to be, I got to put the wing in place. And here's another thing. Every time I put the wing in place, I'm looking for hard spots, spots that maybe glue has dripped on, or in this case, I might want to put an edge on this. I have to get this all put back together. And then one of the final things, and it's these final things that really make the model. Getting all these edges nice, flat, square, getting these edges clean, and getting it ready for that first coat of dope. Now, because we're going to do an extensive cockpit detailing, what I'll probably do is do the cockpit detail before I put any dope on. But if I run into a thing where I need to wait for the next step, I can put a couple of coats of dope on this even now, because the ogive parts are going to be separate pieces, the exhausts are going to be separate pieces, the scoop under here a separate piece. So I still have a lot of little details I can work on, but one of them, like this pin, if I took the cheap way out and I moved this bolt to the middle, what would have happened is I lose some room in there, or I have to make the hatch bigger. And I think what I've done is maximize this, and this idea of having a bolt and a pin, even in a cowling, or like in our cowling, the carbon cowling, where we have a pin up in the nose ring, a pin and a bolt seem to be a good choice. Now when I make the pin, the part that's going to stick out, I've got a bull nose on, radiused off a little bit. The other part I roughened up as much as I can so it gets a good glue seam. And what I need to do is sharpen up a piece of this exact size music wire just to poke a hole where I want this to go and get this inserted in as the next step. Okay, now I got the pin in. I hope you can see the little angle that it's on. It's a very slight angle. And that just makes, when you put it in, it just makes it go in a little bit easier. I hardened this whole surface up with thin CA, just dressed it off, because I want to use this as a flat surface, and I'll probably have to do some Fradruskiizing on the other side because there's a joint in the wood. Now if I take the hatch and I try to guide it in, this gets a little tricky because I want to be right on the spot here. I want to see how high up that is. There we go. What it's going to do is just give me a slight impression to work off. And I've got the impression in the wood right now. Now from that impression, I have to very, very carefully open that up until I have enough, just enough clearance for a little piece of brass tubing or aluminum tubing, whichever is going to be a better fit. Now what I found is, in this unique situation where this has an angle back, it was better if I moved the pin further up. So what I did, I just moved the pin, the thickness of the pin, it's almost on the outer edge. It just made opening and shutting it a little bit easier. The other way, it was like I had a fight to get it in there. And I've re-CA'd this edge. We'll see if this is a little bit better. And that's what's nice about this. You can move this around very conveniently until you find where that pin is going to, and usually it wants to reside as high out into the part as you can get it and still make it that it has some structure. Also, you can curve the top edge of the pin kind of put a bullnose on it just to make getting the pin in. And of course that is one of the criteria. Probably could even do it with a Dremel tool easier, but again, all these little fits and finishes, these are the things that at the end of a project you get antsy to, you know, and Joe and I have talked about that at length. You want to get it done, you want to get it done, I want to get on it, yeah. But you know what? In the end, you're always done early. And then you wish you could go back and do some of these things. Anyway, now here's the pin, and it's as close to the surface. See where it originally started out, and I moved it up. Now, of course, I got to transpose a new hole into the fuselage. Now, this is a little bit of a unique situation. Here's what's happening, is when I get this pin in place, and I just got it in wood, I need to take out some of this material here so it snaps down. In other words, when this snaps down, this little edge is in the way, so I'll just kerf this back just a little bit with the ball router. Now what's funny is every hatch is unique. This one, because of this angle, and you know what, I really should remember this. What I should have done, and maybe I even will still have to do this, is somehow reorient. We'll put a screw back here. I'd like not to do that, but I'll give this a shot first. And it's only a question of getting the hatch on and off conveniently without scratching up the paint. And I may still be able to do that. Each hatch is a unique entity though, that's for sure. Makes you want to go to the dentist regularly. Now that may do it because it's just like doing a sheetrock fit. When you want to do a sheetrock fit, the thing that happens is you always want to find a spot that's hitting and just remove it until the part goes back down. Now that little kerf that we put on there, boy, that seems to have done the job. Now I have to put the tubing in, but that snaps right in position now just about perfectly. And I have to get an edge on there. It looks like I'm going to need a little piece of either 64th plywood or something. I don't know yet. Now getting this hatch on and off, that was one of the little things I didn't want to start chipping up the paint. Comes right on, right off now. I'll find a little piece of tubing for in there. I've already got the impression where it has to go. I can just fill up the other one with a piece of scrap. Now we've got the take on and off just about how we want it. Now the final thing is to get the edges, the fits, that we're going to be happy with them. Now even at this point, there's still just a little bit of that we could take care of sanding block, and I want to see if the edge, if I've got an edge that I'm not happy with, and I do, it's on this side. This one looks okay. But you know what, as long as I'm going to put a piece of 64th plywood on each edge, I may as well do both edges just so it's sitting equal, and then I can sand that out. And I can just dress this off ever so slightly. Actually, I don't even need the plywood. Once that's dressed off, that's pretty good. And I could just harden these up with thin CA. I think that'll be fine. Then I got to look at how this is going to fit in the back. The front is fine. I don't want any thin CA around it until I get a... Oh no, that's going to be fine. Maybe it's my lucky day. Nah, let's stop thinking about that lucky day thing. It's not happening. No, it looks like we're going to be in pretty good shape here. So the next step would be, and unless I see that I'm not happy with this, I can put the bolt in, get out the long sanding block, and start dressing this off. Oh, I don't think that's going to be fine. Now, what I will have to do is once I take this apart and I have the wing nut in place, then I can harden this whole thing up with thin CA around the tube and around the pin, but certainly not while it's bolted together like this. Now, and it's important that this last step, see, that pin isn't letting that move. And you can't really do this final fit. You can't really even do it until you get dope on it a few times, until everything moves out into position, into its final wood position. But if at any point in time we're not happy with the way the edges are, 64th plywood. Now I counted this as one step. Bottom blocks, the hatch, and the final fuse fits. And boy, am I glad. Now that the O-drive, that's a whole nother issue. Lower scoop and exhaust stacks. And I'm counting these as, and I've put these on separately as just detail parts. Now, because I think I'm pretty close on having the having the right clearance, what I thought I'd do is, instead of 64th plywood, I can just harden these edges up. And by hardening the edges up, it pretty much acts the same way 64th plywood potentially would. Gives you a nice hard edge to work off as we do the finishing on this. And what I want to do is monitor the fit on this every time we tissue it, dope it. Just kind of look at it and see that we're not losing that shape. And this sets in a relatively nice angle. But again, anytime I have to fill in a gap, a piece of 64th plywood, maybe a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch wide, to give me a nice straight edge. Now we also, the main thing now is the bulkhead, but I can't really do anything with the bulkhead until I take the wing out of the fuselage to true that up. Always take the material away from the pin, otherwise the pin starts building up material there. This little area here, actually this worked out pretty well. But the main thing is that we have a straight, flat edge to work off. More than anything else, that flat edge. Now I've also, as a final thing, right where I know the pin is, I know that pin is in here, I want to harden up this balsa around it. Let that soak in. What that's going to do, hopefully, is as time goes by with vibration and taking this on and off many times, just that pin will stay nice and solid, which I think it will. I don't think that'll be a problem. Now I even put some CA on where the, let's see if we can get this, where the pin is near the top, even though that's going to be tissued and doped and everything, just to harden up the wood in that area. It makes what I think in the world of aircraft construction they call a hard point, where something mounts. Now this hatch, one of those tricky little parts that just, you think it doesn't take a long time until you start doing the fits and finishes and you realize, whoa, that took a long time. But now it's that bulkhead in the back of this that's the critical thing. I want to get that done as the next step. That little hatch was very labor intensive, but it does fit nice. You know, one of the next things I did, I just put some lightning holes in there. That certainly isn't there's not a lot of strength holding that hatch on. Now it's this joint here. It's really nothing but the joint, and I want to get a flat on that. Now I want to make up on this part here just for the clearance for the paint, which I know is going to be a couple of thousandths of paint. And now when this is gone, I can get in here and seal all this up again. There's no take apart. I can harden up this edge. That's one of the next things, is just the complete perimeter edge I want to get hardened up. And just to see if I'm getting this exactly the way I want it. Close enough to, whoa, as it flies off the table. Now, because I don't have to worry about take apart features right now, I can harden this edge. I don't want to get any more, I don't want to get glue down inside the brass tubing if I can help it. But this edge could use a good hardening. Now, in the course of this day, I got to look at something that John Cafaro had sent in, a tape from a car show that he was at. I guess it's a car show. I guess that would be the right terminology. And there's one thing on it I'm going to pull out and put on the end of this tape, because I think, first off, Les is going to love it. And it's a Testarossa, and it looks like a really nice Testarossa, and everybody knows, boy, I think a Testarossa is the most attractive car that I've ever seen. Now everybody knows how much I love cars, I love trains. The problem is I love too many things. Birds, Karen, it's just gets involved in a hurry. But one of the things on that list is Testarossas. I'm just going to take this footage out and just splice it in here. I think you'll really enjoy seeing this. Now take a close look at this footage.
Are you going to be by your phone?
the storm clouds chase everyone from the place. Come on with the rain, have a smile on my face. I walk down the lane with a happy refrain and singing, just singing in the rain.
A lot of louvers on this car.
I like that. That's the last of them. Huge. Right there, buddy. This is the prettiest Testarossa, I think. The last one. But this one's third category. Yes, it can see. Sorry. Yeah. There's a race car.
Get an idea of some of the sectioning would be on the body side there.
Just the ships that go sailing somewhere beyond the sea. She's there watching for me. If I could fly like birds on high, then straight to her arms I'll go sailing. It's far beyond the star, it's near beyond the moon. I'll know yes, just like before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing.
Who else?
Tamila.
See-through engine cover. How about that, Wendy? Kind of different, wouldn't it?
did mention Daytona and California, right? Those
See,
are-
this
those are
class
really-
here, yeah, I.
Somewhere where there's.
I know it's not me.
Somewhere in the garage. Can't take it.
Well, we really appreciate that footage from John Cafaro, who obviously has the passion for excellence that many of us share. And I always love to, I probably have played that in the shop 50 times already in the last couple of days. I just love looking at those cars. And of course I'm jealous that there's not one sitting out in my garage. Although probably I wouldn't get to drive it much if I did. But I will get to fly these planes, and that is a significant difference. Anyway, we're coming up on the end of this tape. The next step for us is obviously then we need to get all the final sanding done on this fuselage. And we're going to be meeting with Joe in a few days, so we're really looking forward to, well, and we're going to do a dedicated canopy video, cockpit detail.